Hello everyone, welcome to this tutorial on business analyst interview questions and answers. So in this tutorial, we'll be going through various questions that you may come across while facing interviews for a business analyst profile. Now, before we move ahead, do subscribe to IntelliPath's YouTube channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss out on our upcoming updates. Now let's begin. So starting with the first one, what is the difference between a data analyst and a business analyst? Now starting with data analyst, the role requires more problem solving skills and data analysis skill, whereas it requires more of decision making and data visualization skills for a business analyst, as we are dealing with the real life business problems and a business analyst has to resolve it, has to find a solution for it by making a better decision. Now, it is more of an operational role in the organization for a data analyst, and for a business analyst, it is more of a strategic role in the organization. Then, data analyst profile requires knowledge of statistics, SQL, data mining, and many more. Whereas, the business analyst profile requires the knowledge of business intelligence. There are various tools for business intelligence, then data warehousing, analytics, and many more. Now, let us move on to the next question. List the core competencies of a business analyst. So, a business analyst should have a strong analytical thinking and they should have proper knowledge so that they can make decisions, or rather you can say proper decisions for any business. They should have business and industry knowledge, so they should have experience of working for a business organization, as well as they should have proper industry knowledge so that they can deal with the problems that a business faces. Then comes business process management, which includes various tasks and strategies that a business possesses for improving its strategies. Then comes technical and soft skills. So as in this digital era, most of the companies or businesses uses some or other sort of technology for implementing their day-to-day business tasks. So a business analyst should have a thorough knowledge of which technology their company is using. Also, they should have knowledge of various tools that helps them to analyze the business data for their company. Now coming to soft skills, so as the job of a business analyst is to analyze the business data and prepare reports, then make the team understand about the business insights. So they should have a good communication skills, or you can say the soft skills, so that they can communicate well with their team. And the next one is problem solving and negotiation skills. So problem solving skills always help to solve the real life business problem. Therefore, same applies for a business analyst. Now coming to negotiation skills. So good negotiation skills help build relationships because the aim is to foster goodwill despite differences in the interest of client and the company. So good negotiation skills help in avoiding future conflicts and problems by leaving both parties equally satisfied with no barriers to communicate for the future. Now let us move on to the next question, that is, what is a feasibility study? So a feasibility study is identifying the possibility, or you can say the success rate of the proposed idea for a business problem. So first you should have a business problem, so how you can exactly resolve it. So then you should have an idea. Then after building or developing the product or the solution to it, you should evaluate it on the basis of success rate or the feasibility study. So a feasibility study is an analysis that takes all of a project's relevant factors into account, including the economical, then technical, legal and scheduling considerations to ascertain the likelihood of completing the project successfully. Basically, it evaluates the project's potential for success. Therefore, perceived objectivity is an essential factor in the credibility of the study for potential investors as well as the lending institutions. So the main purpose of a feasibility study is to assess the financial viability of a developed product, whether it will be a success or a failure. So this is about the feasibility study. Now let us move on to the next question, which is what are the different tools used in business analytics? Starting with MS Office. So it is a set of computer applications that is mainly used for business or office purposes for storing the data. So MS Office helps simplify basic tasks and improve the work productivity, and each application in MS Office is designed to address specific tasks such as the word processing, the data management, making presentations, and organizing emails. So it is a collection of various applications, and each application has a unique purpose and it offers a specific service to the users. So it has Microsoft Word that is used to create documents, then Microsoft PowerPoint used to create presentations, then Microsoft Excel that is used to store the data in a structured way. So that is why we use MS Office. Then comes SQL, that is a structured query language. So it is a database language. So as we are dealing with analytics of the data for resolving a business problem or analyzing the business, so we need data for it. So where do we get it? We use SQL for fetching the data from the database. Then comes Blueprint. It is a tool that monitor the impact of your business processes. So it helps in reporting and analytics, and it is a tool for gaining clear, centralized and executive level visibility of the data. After that comes ClickView and TabView. So these are the tools that actually helps to visualize the data using various graphs and plots. So you can get the clear idea about the data using the beautiful graphs. After that comes Python and R programming language. These two programming languages serves as the major tools for the analytics of the data, and it provides various libraries and packages that helps to get the insight of the data using various graphs, plots and various parameters. So these two are the widely used programming languages used in the business analytics industry. Then comes Azure. It is a powerful design tool for creating highly interactive HTML prototypes for web, mobile and desktop application projects. So the rapid prototyping in Azure is the core focus of the tool, and it allows users to quickly create wireframes and prototypes for any rough ideas that they may have. So it is a wonderful tool for business analytics. Now explain the business analysis process flow. So these 8 are the core processes of business analysis, starting from information gathering. The very first thing is you have to gather the information or the data related to your business, to analyze it and to perform the analytics on it. Then identify the key stakeholders that are an important asset for the business and who actually affect your business. Then identify the business objective that you have. So there are a list of objectives for your business that you must know about. So identify them and then determine the available options that you have for resolving the problem. Then define the scope of the project. After that, define the delivery plan, which includes how you represent the execution of your project plan. Then comes defining the requirements for a project, which includes gathering the resources that are needed for implementing a project. And finally, you have to implement your project plan and then evaluate and test for knowing how well it is built. Now let us move on to the next question. How do you perform risk management in your project? So a risk is defined as an uncertain event that causes threat to the existing business. So for performing risk management in our project, here are the risk management process. So first you have to identify the problem. After that, you have to analyze the problem by using the data that is available related to your business. So you have to understand and analyze the problem from the data. Then you have to create a plan for the resolution of the problem. So you have to make a proper strategy to execute your strategies made for the resolution of the problem or the risk. Then you have to make actions on that, the strategy and the plan that you have made, you have to execute it. And after executing the plan, so after making the proper action for the made strategy, you have to monitor the results and you have to understand and analyze the results so that you get the knowledge about whether this risk management process is working out for a particular business problem or not. And if the process is not working out, then again you have to analyze the shortcomings, then you have to make changes to the plan and then again act or implement according to the changes you have made in your plan. Then again monitor and control. So this is actually the risk management process that every company follow. Now let's go to the next question. Differentiate between risk mitigation and risk avoidance. Starting with risk mitigation. So risk mitigation is what to do when a risk occurs, and risk avoidance is what to do to avoid the risk. Then coming to risk mitigation, it reduces the probability of risk occurrence, and the risk avoidance, it avoids the risk by eliminating the cause that is creating the risk. Then comes, it checks whether any impact occurs for the business or the project. Whereas in risk avoidance, the impact of threat occurrence is reduced to zero, as it avoids the risk by eliminating the cost. Then in risk mitigation, cost is high in case any risk occurs. Whereas in risk avoidance, cost is eliminated in risk avoidance. So this was the actual difference between risk mitigation and risk avoidance. Now let's go to the next question. What are the different phases of an IT project? So there are 5 phases of an IT project, starting from project initiation, then project planning, execution, closure, and finally monitoring and control. So initiation is the very first process of the phases of an IT project. So first you should have an idea for the project, what you have to actually build. After that, you have to plan what all things actually your project requires. So you have to jot down the requirements and how you have to make your project, along with the resources that you need for developing this project. Then comes project execution. So after getting all the requirements, resources and planning about the project, you have to execute the project. So you have to put all your resources for implementation. Then after the successful execution of the project comes the project closure step. So after the successful completion and the closure of the project, you have to monitor and control your project so that you can test it, you can evaluate its performance. So these are the phases of an IT project. Now let us move on to the next question, that is differentiate between a software development life cycle and project life cycle. So starting with SFDC, that is software development life cycle, it is used for developing particular software products, whereas project life cycle is used for developing a new product in the business. Then mostly involves, that is software development life cycle mostly involves single software across different phases, whereas project life cycle involves multiple software in a single customer scenario. After that, SDLC phases include requirement gathering, design, coding, documentation, operations, and maintenance, whereas project life cycle phases include idea generation, screening, research, development, testing, and analysis. So these are the basic differences between software development life cycle and project development life cycle. Now let us move on to the next question. What are the tasks and responsibilities of a project manager? So starting with defining scope, resource planning, budget estimation, risk analysis, and quality control. So these are the tasks and responsibilities of a project manager. So in defining scope, so it actually refers to the combined objectives and requirements needed to complete a project. And the term is often used in project management, and it is properly defining the scope of a project that actually allows manager to estimate costs and the time required to finish the project. So in simple words, it is all the work that needs to be done in order to achieve a project's objectives, and it actually involves the process of identifying and documenting specific project goals as well as outcomes, milestones, all the tasks, then cost and timelines, including dates specific to the project objectives. So this is actually defining scope. Then comes resource planning. So actually resource planning is a process of allocating tasks to humans as well as non-human resources so that they are maximized for efficiency. Also, it helps project managers manage resources and its utilization and track resource capacity to keep projects on budget. So in simple words, resource planning is a systematic process to achieve the optimum use of an organization's time and people. So using a confluence of project management skills and various techniques, we can maintain stability between projects, tasks, teams, time, and budget. Then comes budget estimation. So it is the process of estimating all the costs associated with completing a project within scope and according to its timeline. So it is actually forecasting the cost and other resources needed to complete a project. and it accounts for each element required for the project and calculates a total amount that determines a project budget. After that comes risk analysis. This is one of the most important factor in any project development task for a project manager. So risk analysis involves examining how project outcomes and objectives might change due to the impact of the risk event. Once the risks are identified, they are analyzed to identify the qualitative and quantitative impact of the risk on the project so that the appropriate steps for tackling the risk can be taken to mitigate them. After that comes quality control. So control quality involves activities that are used to evaluate whether the product or service meets quality requirements that are specified for the project. And this quality control is very crucial in any project for any project manager handling the task of business analytics, because it ensures that everything is within the scope of the project planning. So these are the tasks and responsibilities of a project manager. Now let us move on to the next question. What do you mean by critical path analysis? So critical path is the set of activities which includes the longest path in the whole project. So it is basically a technique that requires mapping out every key task that is necessary to complete a project, and it includes identifying the amount of time necessary to finish each activity and the dependencies of each activity on any others. So basically it is also a sequence of project network activities which can add up to the longest overall duration, regardless of the longest duration of the project. Then it actually helps to identify the most important task in a project, and this provides a higher level of insight into your project's timeline and a correlation between tasks that gives you more understanding about which task durations you can modify and which must stay the same. So this is actually critical path analysis. So you can see this diagram. So here is the project start date, and it is categorized with the labels of A, B and C, starting from A1, that is 10 days, then A2 8 days, A3 9 days, and finally the project completion date. Then comes B1. So B1 has 2 days, B2 7 days, B3 3 days. Then coming to C1, C1 has 10 days, C2 has 8 days, and C3 has 12 days. So the longest duration is of category C and the least duration is of category B. So you can analyze the timeline that is required for the completion of different tasks of a project. Now let us move on to the next question. List various components of a strategy analysis. So it starts from vision, then mission, then objective of the project, then strategy, and finally the action plan. So starting with the detail of vision. So what actually is the vision when talking about the strategy analysis for any project? So a vision is a description of the desired state or ultimate condition that should exist after the project has been completed, and then it is typically expressed in a vision statement, which is a clear and brief summary of what the project team members and their stakeholders expect to achieve. Then comes mission. So the mission statement is a summary of what the project is trying to achieve. However, if you ask many people involved in a project what is the mission statement, most of them will not know. So a team lead should remind the project members of the mission statement at regular intervals so that they can know in which direction they are heading towards. Now we'll talk about the objective. Now project objective describes the desired results of a project, which often includes a tangible item. So an objective is specific and measurable and must meet time, budget as well as quality constraints. So project may have one objective, many parallel objectives, or several objectives that must be achieved sequentially. Now coming to strategy for any project. So basically it identifies and implements the organization's long-term goals as well as the objectives of the project. So the project strategy is actually a direction in a project that contributes to the success of the project in its environment. Then comes action plan. So it is a list of tasks that you need to do to complete a simple project or objective. So to draw one up, simply list the tasks that you need to complete to deliver your project or objective in order that you need to complete them. So this is the component. So these are the list of various components of strategy analysis. Now let us move on to the next one. What is business modeling? So business modeling is identifying the value proposition for a business and then building a step-by-step approach for operating the business. So in business analytics, business process modeling is the activity of representing processes of an enterprise so that the current process may be analyzed, improved and automated. So the change in the management programs are typically involved to put any improved business processes into practice. So this is the use of business modeling. So these are the outliers, or you can say these are the outliers for business modeling, that is vision, options and plan. So vision consists of you have to map your target's ecosystem. Then in options, you have to create winning business model options so that you can stand unique in the market. Then you have to map your business Then you have to map your business model roadmap by making effective plans and strategies for your business. So this was about business modeling. Now let us move on to the next one, that is list various software engineering processes. So it starts from gathering of requirements, where you have to gather the requirements of the user, client or customer. So what they actually need in the software, or any functionality or any specific function they need in the software. So first process and the first step is actually the gathering of the specific requirements, and that you have to collect directly from the customer or the client. Then you have to analyze the requirement to make the software, or to make the proper strategy the software. Here you have to analyze what all things can be done and what all things cannot be done. So you have to look into the estimation of the cost, the time that is required for developing the product or the software. So you have to analyze all that. After that, or after analyzing, you have to design the product. So how your product, or how the product for the client will look like, or you have to design the structure of the software so that you can add the functionalities, or you create or develop or implement using various tools and techniques or programming language. Then comes the implementing, that includes the implementation part using the programming language or any tools or technology that you have to use. And after that comes the testing part, where after the development of the software you have to test it in order to evaluate it, or evaluate the performance on the basis of various factors or parameters, so that you can iteratively test and improve the software for the final deployment. And finally comes the deployment in the business environment. So you have to deploy the software in the real-time business environment to see how it performs, and then again you have to collect the response, and again if there are any changes you have to do it. So these are the list of software engineering processes that companies follow. Now let us move on to the next question in the queue, that is differentiate between agile and waterfall model. So talking about agile, so it is flexible in nature, whereas waterfall model is structured software development methodology. So agile focuses on customer satisfaction majorly, and in waterfall model the internal process does not require customer participation. After that, agile is flexible to changes in the requirement. And talking about the waterfall model, so the requirements must be clearly defined and the changes are difficult to implement. So agile has an incremental approach, whereas the waterfall model has sequential design process. Finally, in agile, testing can be done in every phase, and in waterfall model, testing is performed only in the final phase. So these are the major differences between the agile and the waterfall model. Now let us move on to the next question. What is RUP methodology? So RUP is an object-oriented approach that guarantees successful project management and top-notch software production. So the RUP development methodology provides a structured way for companies to envision, create software programs. Since it provides a specific plan for each setup of the development process, it helps prevent resources from being wasted and reduces unexpected development cost. Also, the main goal of RUP, or you can say the rational unified process, is to create high quality software with a predictable budget and time frame. So it is supported by a variety of tools supporting change and configuration management, as well as creating automated documentation with performance tracking and other tasks. So it actually helps in application improvement, software production and project management. Now let us move on to the next question, that is, what is RAD methodology? So RAD stands for Rapid Application Development, and it is a form of agile software development methodology that prioritizes rapid prototype releases and iterations and user feedback over strict planning and requirement recording. So you can see the diagram. So first is the requirement planning, then comes the design where it collects or designs the prototype, then it tests the software, and after that improve over iterations by testing and finding the errors or bugs or any shortcomings in the software. After creating a successful prototype, it goes for the development, and finally it is delivered to the customer. So basically it is an iterative model, and in general RAD approach for the software development means putting lesser emphasis on planning tasks and more emphasis on the development and coming up with a prototype. So this is about the RAD methodology. Now let us move on to the next question in the queue. What are project deliverables? So project deliverables are a set of measurable goods and services that are delivered to the end customers at the completion of a project. So the term deliverables over here is a project management term that's traditionally used to describe the quantifiable goods or services that must be provided upon the completion of a project. So deliverables can be tangible or intangible in nature. So some of the examples of process deliverables can be statement of work, work breakdown structure, project scope statement, project governance plan, and there are the key deliverables of a project. There can be key deliverables of a project. So a project is only complete when the deliverable is accepted or signed off. So the key deliverables are the main goal, tangible or intangible, that has been accomplished, or the many key deliverables set in the timeline along the way. Now a question may arise, how do I find project deliverables? So there are certain steps or methods that you can follow to find the project deliverables. So here are few of the steps that I would discuss. So you should have a detailed and clear description for all team members involved in the project. Then specify the operations and functionalities that will be performed by the software. Also, you can ensure the alignment with all the requirements provided by the customers and clearly establish the client's expectations, and then clearly establish the client's expectations and secure the client's consent and acceptance. So these are few of the steps that you can follow to meet IT project deliverables. Now let us move on to the next question. List the components of requirements work plan. So these are the list of the components of the requirements work plan, that is project description, key issues, deliverables, goals and objectives, strategy, resources, budget and time. So in project description, you should have knowledge of what actually you are developing. So here you need to describe the details of the project, the features, the functionalities that are to be added in the project. After that comes the key issues. So you should be aware of the key issues you might face during the development or the planning of the project. So there can be various issues related to the resources or the technology that you have to use for developing the project. You need to create the prototype of your project in such a way that you may face during the development of the project. Then comes the deliverables. So you need to focus on the key deliverables. You should know about that. So we already discussed about the deliverables, what they are. So I'll move on to the next one, that is goals and objectives. So what is the goal and what is the objective of creating this project or developing this project? So you need to be clear about that. Then comes the strategy. So you have to make a proper strategy for creating the project. So proper strategy and planning is must for developing any project. Then comes resources. So you have to plan and you have to decide about the resources according to the requirement of the project or the requirement of the client or the customer. So you have to focus on the resources also, so that you have proper resources for developing the project. And then comes the budget and the time. After the proper analysis of the project, then key issues, goals and objectives, then strategy, then resources that are needed for developing the project, you can estimate about the budget and the time. So how much exact time is required for creating that project and what is the budget of the project. So these are the list of the components for the requirements work plan. Now let us move on to the next question, that is, what is the purpose of the requirement traceability matrix? So RTM, that is requirement traceability matrix, is used to record all the requirements given by a client. So the purpose of RTM is to ensure that all of the mentioned requirements are met. So it is actually a document that demonstrates the relationship between requirements and other artifacts. So it is used to prove that the requirements have been fulfilled, and it is typically documented that consists of the requirements, the test results, and the issues. So this is the use of the requirement traceability matrix. So it is usually prepared by business analyst or the project architect, depending upon the organization or the type of business or the project structure. So they actually define the goal, gather the artifacts, create a traceability matrix, and then copy and paste the requirements from the requirement document and tells about the actual project requirements and present it in front of the project team. So this is the requirement traceability matrix. Now let us move on to the next question. What is business process modeling? So it is the representation of organization's business process. So basically it is a part of business process management which is used to improve the business processes. So it is the analytical representation, or putting it simply, it is an illustration of an organization's business process, which is a critical component for any effective business process management. Also, with the help of business process modeling, we can understand and describe the various processes involved in the business, and it connects and improves the communication between the current and the future state of various business processes. There are various key advantages of business process modeling, which are quality of the conversation, then mutual understanding, documentation of the processes so that everything is structured and well known. Then comes transparency, alignment of business processes with business and IT, along with business process improvement and agility, then standardization of best practices and business system requirements. So these are the key advantages of business process modeling. So here is an example or the diagram you can see for an operation team working for a company. So we are checking the status of the working group and we have to send the issue list. So what should be the process? So first we have to check the status. Then we have to check, is the working group active or not? If it is not, then we have to terminate the process. Otherwise, we have to send the current issue list to the working group. So this is a basic representation of the organization's business process related with the operations team that helps companies to systematically perform their day-to-day activities. Now let me go to the next question, which is list the benefits of business process modeling. So few of the benefits of business process modeling are, it is used to picture a clear understanding of the business processes. Then it provides consistency and control over the processes of the object. Also, it is used to identify and eliminate the errors and bottlenecks, and it gives a pathway for clear start and end for the process without hassles. Now these were the benefits. Now let us move on to the next question. What is the use of UML? So UML stands for Unified Modeling Language, and it is a general purpose developmental modeling language that provides a standard way to visualize the system. So it is a standardized modeling language that consists of an integrated set of diagrams developed to help systems and software developers for specifying, visualizing, constructing, and documenting the artifacts of software systems, as well as for business modeling and other non-software systems. So the UML represents a collection of best engineering practices that have proven successful in the modeling of large and complex systems. Also, the UML is one of the very important part of developing object-oriented software and the software development processes. It uses mostly graphical notations to express the design of the software project, and using the UML, it helps project teams to communicate, explore, create potential design, and validate the architectural design of the software. Also, it helps to reason the system's behavior, then detect and eliminate errors and propose design plans to stakeholders. So this is unified modeling language. Now let me move on to the next question, that is, how do you analyze performance metrics? So there are three key points for analyzing the performance metrics. So first one is, make sure that your key deliverables are met. So this means that whatever feature or functions that you have to add for the customers are properly developed. Then comes the budget and the time for the project should not be extended. So as you have given the quotation, or as you have to give the quotation for the budget of the project and the time of completion, so it should not be extended, because it will make a negative impact on the customer's mind that the estimated budget was something else before the creation of the project, and now after the completion of the project the company is stating the extended budget. Also, the time of completion is one of the important factor that customer notices. So if you have completed your project on time, it makes a positive impact. Then quality deliverables are maintained. So you have to keep in mind or make sure that the quality of the software or the product that you have made is according to the standards of the customer, or you can say the quality should not be hampered. Now let me move on to the next question, that is, what do you think is the scope of business analyst in the agile methodology perspective? So with agile methodology, business analysts act as a bridge between the development team and the stakeholders. So they act on the key deliverables to prioritize and deliver the project in the stipulated time and budget. So in actual, a business analyst is a person who analyzes an organization's or business domain and documents its businesses and processes or systems and accessing the business model or its integration with technology. But coming to development team, so they help them improve their processes and systems, and they conduct research and analysis in order to come up with better solutions for the development team that they faces for developing a product for the customer, and they help to introduce these systems to businesses as well as their clients. So this is the scope of a business analyst in the agile methodology. Now let me go to the next question. What is meant by scope creep? So scope creep is defined as the uncontrolled or sudden changes or deviations in the project's scope without changes in other resources of the project. So it actually describes, or you can say, the scope creep as adding features and functionality in the project scope without addressing the effects on the time, cost and resources, or without the customer approval. So changes on the project is inevitable, and so the possibility of scope creep is also inevitable. Now the primary cause of scope creep is poor requirement analysis, not involving users early enough, and underestimating the complexity of the project. Also, one of the leading reasons for scope creep is client and stakeholders recommendations. Often what happens is a client disrupts your progress when they make additional requests or change orders midway through a project. Also, you can prevent this by including them in your planning process so that they can tell the actual plan, the features, functions that they want in their or the project. So how do you identify scope creep? So in its simplest forms, scope creep occurs when a project's requirements, goals or vision changes beyond what was originally agreed upon. So when this happens, the project is no longer clearly defined and the borders of the responsibility, and ultimately the completion becomes very complex. So there comes scope creep. Now let me go to the next question. List the elicitation techniques in business analytics. So elicitation is a practice of collecting requirements from end customers and stakeholders. So it includes brainstorming, document analysis, focus group, interface analysis, interview, observation, prototyping, requirements workshop, reverse engineering, and survey. So you need to perform brainstorming for solving the business problem. So you need to find the proper solution with the help of brainstorming. Then you need to analyze the document that you are having. Then you have to find the key factors of the business with the help of the analysis. Then you need to observe what all changes you need to make in your prototype, and after that you have to recheck the requirements, perform reverse engineering, and then the survey of the product whether it is properly built or not. Now let me go to the next question. What are the initial steps involved in the product development? It includes market analysis, SWOT analysis, personas, competitor analysis, then identifying the strategic vision. So in market analysis, you need to analyze the market trends, what all products are trending in the market, and who all are the companies or the people who are developing the product, who are actually your competitors, including the cost of the product for which they provide the product to the customers. Then comes SWOT analysis. So it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so a SWOT analysis is a technique for assessing these four aspects of your business. So you can use SWOT analysis to make the most of what you have got to your organization's best advantage. So example of this can be, it includes who is on your team, your patents and intellectual property, then your location, your assets, your resources, and the shortcomings of your business. So it is basically a planning framework that a business can use to identify a strategic endeavors, including the strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. So how do we actually perform SWOT analysis? So first we have to determine the objective, decide on a key project or strategy, to analyze and place it at the top of the page, then create a grid, draw a large square and then divide it into 4 smaller squares, then label each box. Then we have to add strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Then we have to draw conclusion on the basis of various parameters, factors, and the data available. And in this way, we perform SWOT analysis. A persona in user-centered design and marketing is a fictional character created to represent a user type that might use a site, brand, or product in a similar way. So it is like a dummy product. So marketers may use personas together with market segmentation, where the qualitative personas are constructed to be representative of specific segments. So the actual purpose of personas is to create a reliable and realistic representations of your key audience segment for reference. So these representations should be based on qualitative and some quantitative user research and web analytics. Then comes competitor analysis, which is one of the most important factor for any business. So you should know what your competitor is developing or their product, and this helps to understand that to which audience your competitor is targeting and what is the response for the product. Then identifying the strategic vision. So you should identify the vision for your product or for your business. So these are the initial steps involved in product development. Now let us look into the next question, that is, what is BPMN gateway and what are its elements? So BPMN gateway is used for controlling the sequence of processes and flow of interaction, which is in a way a processing modeling component. So you can see in this diagram there is a task, then there are certain conditions, and there are corresponding tasks for the condition, and after that, according to the fulfillment of the condition, the output is generated. So it is actually controlling the sequence of processes and the flow of interaction. So that is why we use BPMN gateway. So it actually structures the flow of execution of various processes that we involve in our business activities. Now let us look into its elements. So here are the elements of the BPMN gateway, that is flow objects, data connection objects, swim lanes, and artifacts. Now finally we'll move on to the last question of this business analyst interview questions tutorial, that is, what is requirement prioritization in business analysis? So it is a structured process that is used to allocate the requirements based on the urgency. So there are scenarios where customer demands or requests for some other features or functions or tells you about some requirements while developing the product. So the customer is not wrong on his part. but the business analyst needs to understand the needs of the business to prioritize the requirements. So actually the prioritization means the order of importance. Now, how do we actually prioritize our requirements or the requirements of the customer or the business? So first we have to understand the purpose and strategy for prioritization. Then we have to list the needs of the customer, then the list of the requirements. Then we have to facilitate the rating of the need or the requirement interrelationships, then determine the technical or the development factors, and then determine the priority rating. So after that, there are some factors that influence the requirement prioritization, and they are project phase, delivery schedule, and cost capping. So in the project phase, so we have to look into which phase the project is going on. So it may be in its end phase, so it becomes a hectic task for the developers to make the changes. Also, the delivery schedule may get affected due to this, and the cost capping as well. So maybe the cost will be increased, the date on which the product has to be delivered, it can be extended. So these are the factors that influence the requirement prioritization. So this was about the requirement prioritization. Now we have come to an end of this business analyst interview questions and answers tutorial. I hope this video was informative for you. Thank you.